So I've been wondering, what exactly is the point of the time streaming devices? Who built these things? What are they there for? It seems like all they're really used for is altering history, but you're not supposed to do that. Or at least they give the appearance that you're not supposed to mess with history. Mobius seems to discourage it. But even if that's a clever ruse and Raziel was always destined to ruin history, how exactly do you plan for that? How do you make a prophecy about not following history? It does just seem a little bit antithetical to the whole idea of future telling if someone can screw up the future. After all, if you've got free will, then your actions can't really be predicted. So if everyone were predicting your actions, it would just be like some jerk telling you what they think you're gonna do. Believe it or not, the game actually does take this sort of into account. They give multiple prophecies for Raziel, and he doesn't really follow any of them, although he does kinda loosely follow all of them. Basically, they just predict that Raziel's gonna kill important people, and they try to ascribe some motives to what he's doing, but when it comes down to it, it's just that Raziel's kind of a jerk, and he just kills people he doesn't like. It's sort of like if the Republican Party predicted rain between now and the apocalypse, and when the rain happened, they said, see, there you go, it rained to support our beliefs. But that wouldn't be true, it just rains because it rains. Of course, you'd have the Democrats on the other side say, no, it rained to support our beliefs, but that also wouldn't be true. Raziel just kills people, there's not really a lot of rhyme or reason to it. In fact, I think that Raziel spends so much time in the dark about things that even if he wanted to choose a side, he really couldn't. He knows nothing about these groups, so the rain is gonna rain and Raziel's just gonna kill people that get in his way. Such are the wiles of probability. But oh well, let's get back to our game.
Hello, my name is Taylor.
And I am Ray.
And it is I who is Peyton, the best player of the three. But it is not I who plays the game, it is Ray who is in the driver's seat. Yes.
And I am doing a rather adequate job, thank you very much.
Except for the stark lack of navigation skills.
I said adequate. I'm getting us from point A to point B, however slowly.
It is too slowly if you ask me. Yes.
That's one thing that I do like about games a lot. When you're supposed to play as a character who's really competent, like an expert, but the player is kind of an idiot, so the character winds up looking stupid by proxy.
Well, if you stop and think about what the game tells you you're doing versus what you're actually doing, it never really lines up in a logical way. I mean, look at us, it doesn't matter how skilled Raziel is. He's using a magical spirit sword to shoot a golden eyeball. This so he can traverse the ancient ruins that have been laid out specifically just to mess with him. You can't train for that. Nobody ever grows up as a child saying one day I'm gonna grow up to be messed with by the ancient race.
I think when the child wants to be the police officer, this is what they are saying. Yes.
No, when you say you want to be a police officer, you're saying that you want to be messed with by humanity's most banal and routine behaviors. Not even a cop would have to deal with Indiana Jones-style traps.
You know, Taylor, I bet there is a cop somewhere with a story that would attest to the complete opposite.
Of course, yes. A police officer comes for the drug sting and finds the cocaine on the pedestal. He removes the cocaine, and then a boulder drops out of the ceiling. It is put there merely because the police officers will not expect it.
I think that's pretty much the basic relationship that the police have with criminals. I mean, they've got their routines, the police do, and criminals have no routines, necessarily. I mean, they have stuff that they get caught for commonly, but when they start to think about how they're gonna screw up the police, there's a lot more ways to do things wrong than there is to do things right. I've known a couple cops and- oh, hello, sword. No, thank you, I don't want you. Anyway, I've known a couple cops and I get the impression that a lot of them just eventually learn to sort of let go and handle what they can handle.
Speaking of being unpredictable, yes, it is funny that Raziel even goes along with the puzzles. Is it not in his nature to do things his own way and ignore everyone?
I think it's just in his way to be self-centered, and this whole temple was built for him, so maybe he doesn't want to break it.
From a game design standpoint, that would be really frustrating anyway. Not just to the game designer, but to the player. Imagine you have a game where you're supposed to break all the puzzles instead of solving them, and the entire point is to figure out how you're supposed to break them.
It's like a puzzle game within a puzzle game, where the entire point is to figure out how you're not supposed to solve the puzzle.
That sounds like the best game ever. Yes.
It also sounds like the most unintuitive game ever.
Or the most intuitive game ever.
No, the game would be totally baffling. It would be just like a point-and-click adventure game where you have to try anything on everything, because you have no idea what's gonna work.
Love.
What?
Love always works, Taylor.
Okay, now you're just being a bitch.
Spoken like the one who has never truly experienced love. Yes.
Who? Me or Ray?
Ray, of course. Yes.
Well, I guess love doesn't work if you're cranky and misanthropic.
Oh, You betray me!
Wow, Ray, where did that come from?
I don't know, just I'm the one getting ragged on, my navigation skills, and oh, Ray doesn't have a boyfriend.
Okay, we're sorry, Ray. We're sure that someone wonderful and handsome is out there waiting for you.
But you are still a terrible navigator.
Yes. Peyton, you don't know navigation. I will navigate you to hell.
You dare to pose such a challenge!
I do. We should play a head-to-head game one of these days. Like a RTS or something.
Guys, I suck at RTS games, though. I can never get the macro mechanics right, or the micro. I just can't play them, basically.
Me either, really. But I like Supreme Commander because you can play as a giant robot that explodes when you lose.
Well, that is going to suck for you guys, yes, because I am pretty good at real-time strategy.
Oh, well that's good. It sounds like Ray has chosen pistols at dawn when Ray doesn't know how to shoot and Peyton is a skilled marksman.
That's not entirely accurate. I mean, I'm okay. I might win by luck.
Well, if I play with you guys, I'm just gonna play SimCity. That's all I ever do. Just build up my base, build a cantina for the soldiers, hire some entertainment, have the president come by and say a few words.
Well, your bases sound a lot more fun till everybody gets killed. But anyway, here is the first mural that has clear depictions of what we're supposed to do. We take this crystal thing and we put it in the corpse downstairs, and then that's good.
Ew, it's leaking carrot juice.
That's not carrot juice. It's supposed to be a magical simulated heart. It's leaking carrot juice colored blood.
That's silly though. It's a magical heart crystal thing. Why should it leak anything? Look, it's making a mess all over the floor.
Well, if it's carrot juice, I guess we'd find out, because it would make Raziel's hands all sticky with the sugar.
It just can't be blood. I refuse to believe that it's blood, because that implies that the high priest sat down with the engineer who built this temple and said, oh yeah, we're gonna need this crystal heart, and it has to bleed real blood.
Since they survive by eating blood, isn't that like an infinite food item? It creates food infinitely, yes?
Exactly! And blood is the only thing that vampires eat, so this is like having a magical artifact that just creates a three-course dinner every single second, and they lock it away in a temple for no one to use.
Oh no, it's not that no one uses it, it's just that Raziel destroys it for a magical ritual.
That's not any better. Raziel should steal this artifact and go back in time to give it to starving African vampires.
Well, but if we do that, then how's Raziel gonna get a hold of the Air Reaver?
Doesn't Raziel lose all of his elemental powers by the sequel anyway?
Look at this! We used an item that creates infinite food to kill a miserable corpse.
We can't control how the ancient race bases its priorities, Taylor. We just have to go with whatever they decided had to be done.
But that's not true. The entire point of the game is that Raziel can change time. He's got free will.
Yeah, but Raziel's also a jerk. You think he's the kind of guy who would stop and say to himself, oh wait, I could feed a whole town of vampires with this heart. He wants the Air Reaver, so that's what he's gonna get.
The statue is breathing on us. Behold, amazing physics.
Wow. If that scene had been realistic, Raziel probably would have smashed his head on the altar, then been smeared across the floor for a little ways before he faded into the spectral realm.
Should have been more like being hit with a giant fire hose, huh?
If the force of that air was strong enough to lift Raziel off his feet, then hurl him across the room for a ways, then yeah.
Probably would be one of those experiences that Raziel would leave out of his autobiography. Right up there with getting lost in the mountains for like a half hour.
Raziel strikes me as one of those, Royal Society researchers. One of the guys who writes a really compelling story to sell a book, and it's kinda analytical, but he's also sort of embellishing a lot of facts to make everything more interesting.
It's always the embellishments that last for like a generation or two, though.
That's because they're exciting and romantic, but they're also false.
You know what would be a cool twist? If Raziel actually went back in time, met the ancient race, hyped himself up, and then thereby created his own prophecy.
You mean all this expectation of the great hero was just Raziel telling this ancient people that he was their great hero, and that he would be coming?
Yes, and the whole game would just be one stable time loop of Raziel being self-absorbed.
That would be kind of amazing, actually. Sort of a moral buried in there.
Yep, you're master of your own destiny, and sort of shape your own self-perceptions.
This is sort of what the game is already about, though. Yes.
Sort of. There's an awful lot of subtext about fatalism, and a lot of things kind of do happen because Raziel makes them happen. But at the same time, there's a lot of ways that Raziel is not in control.
But that's kind of the idea behind fatalism, isn't it? You're going to do everything for a reason, so that means you're destined to do certain things because you'll just react in certain ways.
Yeah, but the game also includes future telling and prophecies, which kind of screws up all the fatalistic stuff. They always bother me because if you're gonna tell the future, then you're gonna change the future. It's even more frustrating to me that a lot of times the prophecy is for something stupid that the person doesn't want to do, and then it happens anyway because the person is trying to avoid the prophecy. So just hearing about the future is what caused the future to happen.
Isn't that exactly what you just proposed should happen to Raziel, though?
No, I want Raziel to think that he's the Messiah because he goes back in time and convinces people that he's the Messiah. Afterward, he can realize he's not really any kind of Messiah. It turns out the entire prophecy was bunk and never true, and just spread around by Raziel himself.
Oh, I get it. Okay, so you want the prophecies to be fake.
Also for Raziel to mislead and provide false hope to thousands of innocent people. Yes.
It would also be funny in kind of an opposite day sort of way, because Raziel's surrounded by a lot of conspiracy, so it would be funny if he was the cause of at least one of them.
You were the grand conspirator all along, Raziel. It was you who twisted your destiny.
Which would be all the funnier if Raziel realized what he'd done and then tried to fix it. Like he tries to dispel the belief that he's the Messiah. Of course he'd get some of them to believe him, but the others wouldn't want to drop the faith. And then comes the culture war that led to the rising of the Pillars, and the ascension of Cain.
And then to Raziel's downfall. Yes, when Cain throws him in the pit of torment. So everything bad that has happened to Raziel is Raziel's fault.
Yes. Yep. And you've got a nice little package of just stupid, sort of believable, mundane behavior.
With Raziel at the very center, the source of all things, the champion of both ideologies.
See, that I would like, because then everything really is kind of true in its own way. Just not like you'd think. Raziel really is the Redeemer and the Nemesis. He's the hero and the villain. He's everyone's savior, and yet everyone is totally right to be out to get him.
My favorite part is still that he conspires against himself. Yes.
Just for the record, though, the actual game has it that Raziel's fears are totally well-founded.
Yeah, no. I feel like the Hilden, they kind of turn out to be sort of faceless in this game. When you really find out what they are, they're not really that exciting. At first they start off a little bit sympathetic, but it's pretty apparent they just want to kill everybody.
It is so hard to get people to support a platform of senseless murder. Yes.
It really is, you know. I mean, you think about it, it's like, does senseless murder really help with much stuff? Like, does it lower the cost of healthcare? Probably not. Does it lower taxes? No.
Personally, I think that a local genocide would just hurt campaign funding.
Yeah, you know, it really would. I feel like if the Hilden were a political group instead of like a bunch of furious demons intent on killing everyone, they would do really poorly.
They so would.
You know what though? I feel like maybe the Hilden have a point. Yes. Because the ancient race is the one who built all of these terrible puzzles.
I guess, what can you say about the type of race that would build all these gigantic temples for their messiah, and then force their messiah to run through all these puzzles anyway?
Hey, at least it beats your standard fare of bureaucracy. If this had been anywhere in the real world, they would have made you fill out a bunch of forms, then provide proof of your messiahship.
Where would you find paperwork proof that you're the messiah?
Well, I assume that you'd have to go through a bunch of temples, and then you'd have to prove in the temple somehow that you were the messiah, by like solving puzzles or something.
Oh yeah, that makes sense, because the messiah would be able to prove that he can solve all the puzzles.
Right, and once you solve all the puzzles, you take a slip of paper to some low-level priest guy, and he signs off, and then you're the messiah.
Oh, but what if the priest lies, though? Like, what if you pay him off to say that you did it?
Well, that's okay. It's a bureaucracy. This guy who signs the slip of paper will have at least 6 administrative positions above him. They'll all be highly paid. So if you want to scam the system, you've got to pay these 6 guys.
Okay, so who pays the salaries for the 6 guys, then? The taxpayers? And they just pay until, like, the Messiah shows up?
Temporarily, but people won't like that, so what we'll do is we'll have the Messiah pay an administrative fee when he shows up. The fee will be equal to whatever the salaries were until the Messiah arrived.
Okay, right, because that way the Messiah will have incentive to either show up soon, or never.
Right, so it gets you the Messiah early, and it weeds out corruption, and there's no way that this plan can backfire. Bureaucracy.
You know, now that you bring it up, I really feel like the Elder Race being dead is probably for the best.
This thing you described sounds suspiciously as our criminal justice system. Yes.
How did you know? That's exactly what I based it on.
I remember this from when I had to pay back that stupid fine from the grocery store. Yes.
I told you you shouldn't have gotten the kids involved.
I could not keep them away. Yes. I remember I had to pay the fee and it was too large, so they put me on the payment plan with interest, and I missed a few payments, so over time, I wound up paying double the fee. Yes.
You know what's crazy is that all those bureaucratic fees go towards maintaining the bureaucracy.
Not just the bureaucracy, you know, we have a lot of private prisons and they need to be paid.
No, they don't. If they're private, they don't have to be paid anything.
No, because they have civil contracts with the government, so...
Oh.
I do not regret my crime.
Good for you, Peyton. Still, though, those parents were really mad.
Well, everyone learned something, yes.
We did. Lots of stuff that nobody ever thought they were gonna have to learn.
And learning things you do not expect is part of life. So, we learned something valuable just from how we learn.
So, what exactly happened with this mechanical airplane?
Nothing happened, it was blown out of proportion, and I was fined unnecessarily. Yes.
It was mostly just because the kids were involved. That was the big thing.
They knew what was going to happen. It was their own fault, yes.
It's really just the whole subject. It's not a good can of worms, honestly.
Oh, well, was there kids in danger? Or?
No, yes.
Look, it's a really long story, and Peyton has a really compelling case in her favor, so...
You know who?
Anyway,
I was the only
here looks like a
victim
good
in the
time to stop
entire
for
event.
now.
If parents
So,
are so
thanks for
worried
playing
about
with
the
us,
safety of
everybody.
the children, they should be watching.